Okay, folks, welcome back to the Dynasty Fever YouTube channel. Going to go through my final pre-draft 2023 rookie running back tiers. Just sort of an update from where I was at before. So go check out that longer video because you'll see a little bit more detail about some of these guys. A lot of these guys are actually going to try to move through these a little more quickly, just as sort of an update. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. That'd be really cool. Like the video, that'd be really cool. Comment on the video, that'd be really cool. Polite comments, of course. So, the NFL draft is just a couple days away. So this is kind of where I'm at with the running backs. Just a reminder that sort of the process that I go through when it comes to ranking rookies and stuff is I'll watch film. I'll consult what I see from people who watch film for a much longer time than I have. I'll pull analytical models and data from different sources. I sprinkle in a lot of the stuff that I think is important for us as fantasy football players, like expected draft capital and value and cost and that sort of thing. And I kind of pull all this together and come up with these rookie rankings. They're not just straight player eval. They're not NFL prospect, rankings. They're fantasy football rookie rankings, right? With an emphasis on fantasy football. And they're still not even necessarily the order in which I draft the guys, because you're not going to have to draft the guys in the order that you rank them, right? Say, for example, I don't know, like I'm pretty low on Devon Achane, right? And so there's like 10 running backs that I have higher than him. But chances are, at least looking at mock drafts and ADP and that sort of thing now, he's going ahead of probably of those 10 guys, like at least 6, right? So I take that into account when it comes to where I'm at in a rookie draft, right? So if I'm sitting at, I don't know, the 203, right? Like I might take Achane there and trade him to a person who likes him, right? For a guy I like better, plus, instead of taking the guy that I like better, because I don't have to take him there, or I might trade back and take the guy I like better and get a couple more picks on top of it, et cetera, et cetera. You get the point. Chances are, if you're a listener and if you're watching this channel, you know what I'm talking about, right? So let's get into the 2023 rookie class. It's a solid class. I think it's a deep class. I think it's been getting some negative buzz, as we get weary of the current year's class. But I think when you look at your 10, 12, 14 running backs deep, and you're still saying, listen, I can put together a story right now where this person could be very fantasy viable, then I think you're looking at a deep class, right? Might there be only 2, 3 guys that are gonna pop as far as being consistent fantasy RB1s in their career? Yeah, that's probably true. But there's a whole lot of guys that can be definitely solid contributors, and I think that's a sign of a good class, more than having 2 or 3 or more super elite guys and then trash. Remember that in rookie drafts, you kind of got to be water and do kind of seek value, take what the board gives you, et cetera, right? Also keep in mind, the reality of the 0 RB NFL, the reality of the return of gap running. So, different types of guys are going to be fantasy valuable. It might be a little harder this year to sort of do that whole pound running back and tight ends late and take wide receivers early, because the running backs are going early. So when you're in that 3rd round, when you're in that 4th round, the running back options at the moment seem to be fewer. So keep that in mind as well as you're, trading up or trading back and that sort of thing. So, no surprise here as far as like who the top 3 are. I think unlike some other people, I have, Zach Charbonnet ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs. Right now, that's the way it is. I think he's a safe, well-rounded 3-down back. He's got that floor, that profile of, okay, I know he can be a 3-down back. You know, not as good as Bijan, but, you know, other than Bijan, I think he's probably the only guaranteed like workhorse back in this class. And so that's kind of why I have him ahead of Gibbs. I think, you know, team and scheme and landing spot and stuff are gonna matter for Gibbs. Don't get me wrong, he's super talented and has a big ceiling and is a very good receiver. But you know, right now, I've got Char ahead of as far as that goes, because he's the safer floor and the more well-rounded sort of guaranteed pick. All right. You know, the next bunch is, you know, running backs 4 through 10, and I kind of call that, I don't know, NFL, you tell me, right? So draft capital and landing spot are going to matter a lot more for these guys probably than a whole bunch of other guys. They're really tightly packed. You know, there's pluses and minuses to all these guys. You know, there's stories I can tell for these guys working out really well, and there's stories I can tell for these guys, you know, not working out at all, right? Spears stands out to me. I think what might be a surprise to some is Spears stands out to me as almost the safest. Maybe not the safest, right? Because there's the age and there's the 2 knee injuries and that sort of thing. But for me, he's got the fewest questions about him. He's the clearest as far as we know what we're getting, right? We're getting a guy who's, you know, might be group 5, might be an older prospect, might have had those 2 blown knees, but we really know when we look at his skill set, what he can do well, and that a lot of it is what the NFL looks for. I think he can be like sort of a 1A, 1B in the way that like Tony Pollard can be a 1A or a 1B, or you know, if DeAndre Swift got more playing time because coaches, you know, trusted him more, could be a 1A or a 1B. So I think he can withstand 15 to 18 touches a game if you make, you know, them in a good number of them in space, catching passes, you know, that sort of thing. The rest of the guys, I think there's questions about, right? Like we don't know if, as far, you know, Tank Bigsby, who I like, I'm higher than consensus on. We don't know how much of his flaws really were him and how much of his flaws, you know, were the coaching, the offensive line, you know, the scheme, right? That sort of thing. Like we can make our own subjective estimations on that, I think, but you know, we won't, I think, know for sure until we see him try to develop in the NFL, right? Talent for days with Zach Evans, but you know, maddeningly inconsistent throughout his performances on both teams. So again, questions there. Also, not quite a lot of, you know, receiving usage. Izzy, Israel Abanikanda, great size speed combo. You know, he's 20 years old, you know, big upside, right? He does have to refine his footwork, right? But you know, underrated receiver, but you know, not known for his receiving. And you know, is this a traits guy, you know, that is a little bit more, you know, projection-y and doesn't work out because he was, you know, went to, you know, Pitt in the ACC and you know, doesn't take to the NFL and to refining that footwork. And he's just like, you know, a super athletic, talented guy that doesn't translate in the NFL, right? Kendre Miller, right? He's got some positive traits, right? But, you know, on the ratio of the power that he shows to the size that he has, I don't think is very good. He's definitely needs to make improvements in pass protection. You know, folks point out that he doesn't create his own space well enough, and again, limited receiving usage doesn't mean that he can't do it, right? But so you see what I'm saying here? There's questions about all these guys that I don't think those questions are there for Spears, right? Do some of these guys maybe have higher ceilings than Spears? Yes, that's probably true, right? But I think has the least questions. I think he's got the clearest, you know, profile, the clearest resume right now. I like Roshan. He's well-rounded, but you know, I think it's a very low ceiling with him. I think he's, you know, just meh. You know, he's an underwhelming, you know, sort of well-rounded, like you know, discount Tank Bigsby, maybe, right? Sort of a Brian Robinson-ish kind of guy. I don't know. I just think people are he's got his cult, he's got his hive, and I think he's overrated with them. I'm afraid the NFL is going to overdraft him and you know, and make that cult, that hive, think that they're right. And I don't know, he's probably going to be more expensive in most rookie drafts than I'm willing to go for. Um, he might end up, just, a really good backup like he is now. um, Sean Tucker, he's got speed. He's got a lot of flaws to his game as well. He can, of course, catch passes. Really, the reason that he's 10th here in the bottom of this tier is the medical stuff, is the high uncertainty that we have with him. I hope things turn out great for him. I hope he can end up being an NFL back, and I want the guy to do well. Let's say the medical questions weren't there and he had a pro day, and where he didn't just do the bench press and vert like he did, and ran a 4.42 or something like that, and I don't know, where would he be? It's hard to say, right? Because that's hypothetical, but I'd say he'd probably be between Evans and Izzy, right? He'd probably be, 6 or 7 for me. So, but right now, just to have him, cautiously at 10, right? And we'll see what happens in the NFL draft, right? And the thing that I mean about the solid and deep class is, here we are, running backs 11 through 17, and I can tell myself a story how these guys can be contributors in the NFL and in fantasy. I want at least 5th round draft capital if I'm going to take a chance on these guys. All of them have flaws, all of them have upside, all of them 3rd round or later in rookie drafts for me. Yes, including Devon Achane. Largely a size thing. Read my article about players I'm okay being wrong about on goingfor2.com. It's a profile that I'll fade pretty much every time. It just doesn't turn out well for guys his size when it comes to fantasy production, for whatever reason you want to say, right? It just doesn't turn out well. When we look at sub 195, sub 190 running backs and how they produce in fantasy, I think he'll be a flex guy some weeks and have some good fantasy weeks and look explosive and that sort of thing. I think the NFL is going to overdraft him, or at least draft him baking into the draft capital, his special teams, his kick returning. I think your league mates will probably overdraft him because of how explosive he is. But, I could be wrong, and I'm okay being wrong about a player like Achane 99 times, actually 100 times out of 100. Like I will make that fade and be wrong until, there's enough data that tells me that, sub 190 running backs are going to do well in the NFL. Chase Brown and Eric Gray, both fairly well-rounded with NFL skill sets, but definitely have flaws. Hull, same thing, fairly well-rounded, especially, a good receiver. I think his skills are all good, but they're all low ceiling to me. He's definitely athletic, but I think he's starting to become a little overrated at the moment. I think he's going to be an NFL career better than fantasy production career kind of guy. And I think some folks I don't know, he just seems kind of like a trap to me. McBride, I really like, and I want to like him more. I want to push him up the board higher than I have him. He's got really good size, he's got really good power. He's an explosive runner. You don't see too many. I was just watching a video, and Matt Hicks reminded us, you don't see too many, early declares in the group of 5 schools. But I don't know. He is playing against group of 5 competition. He has almost 0 receiving usage, clear lack of elusiveness. Now, does a guy like that, is the NFL going to see like the 1 or 2 things that he does really, really good and maybe covet those because that works for that team, and they're going to put him only in that role and he's going to excel at that role? Yes, very possible. But I think it's a narrow path for him to be really, really good in the NFL. I want to be wrong, but we'll see. I think he's the type of guy who, between injury and just, short yardage opportunities, he'll have a week where it's like, he'll have, I don't know, 52 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? And you'll get those weeks out of him. Whereas, most weeks, I don't know that you'll get much out of him. I would love to see him running all over the field and prove me wrong. So, if he gets the type of draft capital where I think he's worth a little bit more of a risk, I'll be willing to take him a little earlier. I think Tyon Evans is slightly underrated, I think, at this point. I don't think he's got much to give us as far as like third down skills, but I think a lot of his skills are also sort of low ceiling skills, but very good size and good burst. And playing on the Louisville team, I think kind of stood out as far as watching him on tape. Kenny McIntosh, again, I think is one of those guys that might be a better NFL contributor than a fantasy contributor. But again, if he gets the draft capital and, goes to a team where like, okay, I think I can see the path for him being a good receiving back, then sure, maybe I'm more willing to take the chance on him than I am now. All right, so these are sort of fringier guys, that kind of become these dart throws or these flyers, 4th, 5th round rookie drafts, maybe even post rookie draft waivers. I just don't see it for Deuce Vaughn. The size thing. He basically, his absolute ceiling is Darren Sproles, and I don't know how likely that is, and how even high a ceiling that is. As Sproles was good, but let's be real, right? Who's going to stand out here? Keaton Mitchell, I want to highlight as having some sleeper potential. I think he's got a limited sort of ceiling. I think a limited fantasy outlook, but he's got things about his game that can translate, right? He's explosive. I think for his size, I think he stands up well, does bounce outside a little too much, but does have issues with patience, does have issue with drops. But if there's one guy kind of in here where I want to say, okay, that's a guy that I'm going to tag as like being a sleeper in this bunch, it's Keaton Mitchell. Next bunch. Just some guys to keep an eye on in case they get surprising draft capital, or you see a team pick them up as a UDFA, and you think you like the fit or that sort of thing. Deneric Prince kind of stood out with his athleticism at the combine. I think he's lacking in other areas, and he's an older prospect. But when you're big and when you're athletic, sometimes that can translate in the NFL. I think Travis Dye is a little overrated. I think people are trying to sort of nail him as a sleeper. He's got the things you look for in a sleeper. Like, you can tell the story that he's going to be that guy and be productive and have a role in the NFL. I just don't see it myself personally. Christopher Brooks from BYU, I think, is a guy to keep an eye on for sure. I think his sort of fluidity or athleticism is underrated. I think he's got pretty good size. It's gonna remains to be seen whether he's fast enough and bursty enough to hold up in the NFL. But a guy to keep, right. I think Sir Roderick Thompson is a guy NFL teams are gonna like. He's gonna be a good special teamer. He's going to be a tough, tenacious kind of guy, but nobody that we want for fantasy. Here are sort of the deeper cuts, the real sleepers. Lou Nichols, I think, is interesting. He was productive, well-rounded, good size, isn't quite as explosive as you want to see. And he did play, in the MAC Group of 5 competition, but I think he's a guy to keep an eye on as far as a sleeper goes. Hassan Hall, again, probably a low ceiling, but I think if there's somebody who has a shot to hit, he does. I think he's got a well-rounded skill set, and I think he's got good acceleration. I like Christian Beal-Smith too. Probably, a passing back in a committee that has the upside to be, I don't know, maybe a little better than Kenneth Gainwell is now, right? I wanna root for Toa Taua, right? He's all tatted up, and I mean, I think some of that is cultural, but he's just tough and got good size, and he's just a guy that I really want to root for. If he can improve in certain areas, I'd love to see him, make it as like a short yardage back in the NFL. And just want to call out a real deep sleeper here. Percy Agaye Obisi goes to James Madison, right? He's had a lot of injury history that I think has slowed down his development, but there's traits there. There's size, there's athleticism, there's acceleration, there's power, there's contact balance. I would love for this guy to come out of nowhere, UDFA or something like that, and really pop. But that's what pre-NFL draft is, right? We tell ourselves good stories about these guys and we dream about them, and then the NFL, kind of poops on our dreams, and we're looking at the 6th, 7th round in the UDFAs, trying to figure out if there's anybody worth it, because we're degenerates and we're picking cocaine off the carpet and hoping for somebody to hit, because that's what rookie fever does to us, right? All right, so that's where we're at with the running backs. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment on the video politely. Follow me on Twitter at ffjunkie_. Tune in every Thursday, except this week, to Dynasty Fever. And you can follow us at Dynasty Fever Pod on the Twitters. Coming up after the NFL draft, we'll probably be doing another rookie mock draft episode, maybe live again this year like we did last year. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to be with Jesse and the Dynasty War Games crew for night 2 of the draft. So go over the Dynasty Warzone YouTube channel for that. Me and Josh from Dynasty Saturday Night 5, we're going to be doing a shift on night 1 of the draft on the Going for 2 YouTube channel. So at 9 o'clock, you can catch me there. This is it, folks. The draft is finally here. Kind of almost sick of talking about these rookies. Enjoy this week. Enjoy this time of year. It's kind of Christmassy, right, for Dynasty players. And then sort of the high wears off and we hit the dead zone, and, we'll come up with things to talk about. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. That's a wrap.